Hello there. Welcome to another watercolor review, finally. Today I am reviewing Holbein Artist Watercolor. This is a brand I've been meaning to get for a long time, but it's very hard to get here in the Netherlands and very expensive. And also a lot of it is for sale on eBay, which makes that I don't know if it's a mock brand, a fake brand, or that it's a real thing. But this is actually the real thing. What I'm going to start out doing is I'm going to swatch the set that I have, which are 12 colors plus an extra blue, of which I do not have a color name or a color number, but I'm going to show you anyway. And then I'm going to share with you my overall experiences with this paint, because there is something I want to say about this paint. Before I start swatching, I would like to ask your attention for something. I have a new online course, which is I Wish, and it is a combination of watercolor and mixed media, because watercolor is in fact a really, really good medium to use in mixed media. It's used a lot, and it's used more and more by people in art journals and for mixed media work. But there's a couple of things that if you do not yet have a lot of experience, you might want to learn. And also, this is a course that's based on building up on personal story. And this approach is really good for painting story. If you like journaling and if you like painting your own story, then this can be a really great course to do. But also even for personal growth purposes, this can be a really good course. If you're interested, I have a link below this video, and there is even more, because as of today there is a one-time sale, and I think it's 7 days, 3 to 9 April 2019. So it's only 7 days. It's the Art for Earth package. It's an art bundle. It's a fundraiser for Three Sisters. It is a project towards a more sustainable earth. So it's like making art and helping the earth at the same time. It's my course is part of that, and an interactive ebook that's really inspiring and fun to do is another bonus you get with this course in the Art for Earth package. So if you're interested, hurry up, don't wait, because it's only 7 days, so it's really short. I'll put the links to both the I Wish online course, and that's a single course, and the Art for Earth package below the video, so you can check it out. And I would certainly check out the package, because it's a major thing. Right, so on to the swatching. Now, I have all the colors in here already. Might seem a bit messy, but I know exactly which colors go where. So let's get rid of those. I am, if you're curious, by the way, I am swatching on Fabriano Academia paper, 130 pounds, and fine grain, or it's almost flat, really. So starting out with permanent yellow light. I don't want to give too much information about my opinion of this paint yet. I just want to start out demonstrating the colors. Then a vermilion hue. This is a color that I never ever use in my art. And I don't know if this was a standard set. I think so. But the vermilion is, I think, a very common color in Eastern paints. So, oh, by the way, the first was a permanent yellow light. This is vermilion hue. Now moving on to Crimson Lake. And the Crimson Lake is It differs from the colors the crimsons that I know, in that it has a very bluish undertone. It almost has a purple undertone. I'm trying to get a little bit of flow there, which is not easy because this paint is produced without oxgall. Right, cobalt blue hue, which surprised me, by the way, to find an artist grade paint that has a cobalt blue hue. Why would you sell an artist grade paint not using the real cobalt but the hue? I mean, hue is like sort of an artificial color, and the feel I get with this is that it's a dye. It's not a pigment but a dye. And you know, I'm not sure if that's true, because Holbein doesn't give pigment information on our color chart, not on the tube, nowhere. So I can't check if it's a dye, but the Crimson Lake feels like a dye to me, and the cobalt blue hue as well. The permanent yellow and vermilion a little bit less, but they react differently from what I know. Okay, so now there is a blue color that I bought this set from a woman who sold it again. She had bought it to try out, and she added this as a bonus for me. She said this is the most beautiful Holbein color, and she was keeping it, unfortunately, because it's indeed really beautiful. Oops, I have to dry this off so that we don't contaminate. It's a very beautiful color indeed, and it looks a bit like manganese blue. It reminds me a little bit of the manganese blue by Quarter Fluid Acrylics, I know, and but I just have to wait and see if it dries up that way as well. It's pretty. It's like manganese or a thale. It's a bluish kind of blue. It's kind of pretty. Now the Prussian blue. This is a color I use in my work all the time, and this one feels different to my other Prussian blues. It is pretty, but this one reminds me more of Indenthrone blues, or Indenthrene. Some call them Indenthrone, others call them Indenthrene blues. And I don't know by heart what those pigments are, what the difference is, but it's different. Prussian blue in the brands that I know very well are slightly darker and intense than this one. Especially when you start, you know, when you start working it into the paper, it does give a more a darker feel to it. Permanent green. This one reminds me of a Schminke color I once bought, and it's a color I don't think I would ever use in my work unless I made sort of like a mixed media piece for which I would need a design element in this color. But it's a beautiful color. It's really fresh, especially when you dilute it. I don't use the Schminke color either, by the way. I just bought it one day because I thought it was a pretty yellow green. Right, Viridian hue. Again, I do not understand the hue in this color. And what I feel is remarkable about this color, I don't know if you can see that, but it feels a bit gooey. It feels a bit jelly-like when I lay it down. And as you also can see, it is, I just put paint on my paper twice, but can you see how transparent that is? It doesn't have a lot of power. It remains this transparent, and I don't know. It just doesn't really give me the feeling that I am working with an artist create color. Yellow ochre. Oh, I'm already giving away a little bit of my experience here. Well, this is an ochre. There's nothing much to say about it. Burnt sienna. Oh yeah, the burnt sienna is also kind of, it also has the same gooey feel in painting. Then onto the burnt umber, which is a color I use a lot. It tones down. It's a beautiful color to use with certain blues to create a beautiful, well, a grayish kind of blue or a bluish kind of brown gray. And I also use it in skin tones to darken certain areas. Now here is the ivory black, and what I want to say about the ivory black is it doesn't get very black. It just stays white, gray, sorry. So I'm trying very hard to pick up the pure paint, because what's interesting to me when I'm testing my watercolors, when I'm swatching, is to to explore both the light and the dark of a color. Okay, and now on to the Chinese white, and that I have to say, oh, I have to clean that up because I've been dripping paint in this. But I have to say, I can already say something about this before trying. I was super impressed by the opacity of this Chinese white. Normally in my work, I always have a big jar of white gouache there for highlights here and there, the end of my paintings. With this, I don't need that. This would be, if this were on sale in my local art store, I would buy a tube, because I really love this. And that's why I painted in advance a black rectangle, because I want to show you just how opaque it is. So this is it's a thick though still transparent layer, and I'm going to try and put a few dots in it by using paint that's hardly diluted. This was absolutely a really strong point for me about the paint. You know, I'm not just criticizing or being, you know, I'm not trying to be a wise guy about paint here, but I'm trying to show you the differences between the brands of paint. I'm trying to show you the pluses and, you know, the challenges of any brand for that matter. Right, so picking up a little bit of extra, and then I'm blow drying to speed up the process and tell you my overall experiences with this paint. Okay, so my paper buckled a little bit. Okay, so my paper buckled a little bit because of the heat gun, and also this paper does buckle quite a bit. I'm gonna show you a couple of mixes that I want to make just to try that out. Um, that's something else I always do when I paint. I don't always show you guys. I sometimes do, not always. So I just mix on paper. And this paint is quite strange. Look, this it feels gooey. Do you see that? When I lay down this paint, it's like laying down jelly. Do you see that? It's weird. It doesn't feel like any of the artist grade paints that I know. And I have an opinion about it. I'll give you in a minute. And they don't use ox gall in their paints, I found out today. And, you know, I'm just gonna, for that reason, because then, you know, it's like, how then do you get flow? You hardly get any flow. You see, it's just, the only thing that happens is that the drop of color just flows in the river of the water on the paper. There is no spreading because the ox gall is missing. Personally, I think that would not be my personal preference, to be honest with you. Gonna try one more. Gonna try and make a purple, dark purple, and I know I'm gonna have to use the crimson because the oh yeah, that's beautiful dark purple. It's a beautiful deep purple. Oops. I'm gonna drag it out a little bit and make it thin just to see what it does. I paint such a beautiful table and now I'm ruining it. I added quite a bit of here is how I could, another proof in fact that the Crimson Lake is very bluish for a red, because I added quite a bit of crimson to this what is it, the Prussian blue, and as you can see it is, the purple is more like, it's almost an indigo. It's almost like, I'll see how it dries up. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise again to speed up the process. Okay, so there. Now these, there is one other color I want to mix. And I'm afraid this is going to get muddy, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to just see what happens. What's interesting to see is that underneath the blue, can you see what happens? The vermilion is staining the paper. So in mixing on paper, I can actually see the strokes that I made with the vermilion. I've never had that happen as strong as I have here, because I immediately covered it with blue paint. So, oh, okay. So there's a couple of things I want to say about this paint. Now, this is probably going to result in quite a lot of comments, and I want to say something about that. So, if you're from East Asia and you love using these colors, fine, it's perfect. Like I said, it's very well possible that there is a different vision towards colors, color handling, painting techniques. I know there is a different kind of paper is used, different kind of brushes, different kind of brush strokes, different techniques, and that's fine. And I think it should remain that way. There is no way of saying, what I'm not saying here is that European paints are better than Asian paint. So I want to make that very clear before you jump onto my back like it happened with the Gansai Tambi. But that being said, there is something I want to share with you. When I was looking for the pigment numbers of the Holbein colors, I found their site. And I want to confront Holbein with something they say. And now here is where I feel they're crossing a line. So what they are saying is that Holbein Artist Watercolor is a European style transparent watercolor, which preserves brush handling qualities inherent in Japanese watercolor techniques. So Holbein says we are a European style transparent watercolor. So that's why I am comparing it as such. I am comparing this paint to European and American, for that matter, watercolor paints, artist grade. What they say is that Holbein is more finely ground than any other artist watercolor. Now I have to be really honest with you and say that I don't know if that's true. Personally, as an artist and with the experience that I have with many paints, I don't, there is nothing in this paint that makes me go like, oh wow, that's amazing in you know, the finesse of the pigments, let's say. But you know, could be right. Although if that's true, it does, the pigments that the paint gives the feeling of a dye here and there and not of a paint. Like here in the Viridian hue, it was really clear to me. The cobalt blue hue, they feel like a dye and not like a pigment. So that's what makes me wonder, is it a pigment or is it really a dye? So there is no oxgall in it. So there is no dispersion agent in it, which means that when you drop another color in it. So for my technique, the techniques I'm using with this color is this paint is not very useful, because one of the things I like about watercolor paint is the effects that they have. And then they say it's blah blah blah, enhances handling qualities and delivers color of unequaled intensity. Now here is something I want to make a remark about and say no, this they're good, okay? This is good paint. If you have this set, you can paint with it, have a lot of fun with it, and do your watercolors, no problem. But these are not, it's not unequaled intensity. In fact, if you want unequal intensity, then you should find Old Holland paints. They are unequaled. In fact, for me, they are too intense, but those are unequaled. I think Blocks was another one that was just so very super intense. But other than that, I want to say that some colors disappoint me very much. So, like the Permanent Yellow, when I laid it down, it was really intense and dark. But once it dried up, it's not as intense anymore. The Viridian Hue is disappointing in that Viridians are usually quite strong colors, and this one not so, not with all the paint I applied. The Burnt Sienna too is a color that is usually quite strong. I put down a lot of paint. It's quite light. And then here where I laid down the mix, I took a lot of paint on my brush. I don't know if you saw that. So what I want to say is that when you choose a watercolor and you see these marketing texts like Holbein created, you know, this is text from their homepage. It is holbeinartistmaterials.com / hashtag watercolors. So they give me this information, and then I test it and I say, well, it doesn't really compare to their text. Okay, and now here is where I think they really go too far, and I'm going to say, Holbein, I do not agree with you. Let me first, you know, kiss it up by saying that I love their acrylic gouache. That is, you know, a wonderful paint that I would love to have available here in my country to buy single tubes from. I would buy that any day, but this paint I will not buy. Here is what Holbein says. Holbein Artist Watercolor is the standard by which all others are measured against. Now, I don't know which all others they mean, whether they mean the Asian brands, or that they mean, you know, the entirety of artist watercolor paints. If they mean the last, I'm so sorry, but they do not compare. Because if you have an artist grade paint, the least thing you should have is to replace your use with true pigments. That's the first thing. I should be able to see in every swatch that I make, I should see the behavior of a certain pigment. And now I don't. They are all quite even. They all behave exactly the same. So to me, they feel like a dye instead of a pigment. They're probably not. They're probably pigments, but they're probably pigments to, maybe they were picked to have a uniform quality on paper, which is what I think is a pity. I think, I don't know, of course, if all the Holbein watercolors are like this, or if they perhaps have granulating colors in there. I don't know. I only have these, but if I read their description of their paint and I see what I have here, then these colors do not live up to my expectations after reading the website. So, if you think I'm harsh in my judgment, I'm harsh against the promise that they give, and I am harsh in comparison with other brands that I feel deliver what they promise. So the hues, I think, are no-go in artist grade. That's the first thing. Second thing is they do not prevent pigment info, not on the tubes, not on the color chart, not on the website. I try to find it. If they do provide it somewhere, please let me know, because I've tried to find it, I've Googled it, and I found it nowhere. So to me, for a real artist, a European artist, I want to say, but if you are working on commission basis and you want to make a painting with only archival quality paints that last, then you want to know the pigments. You need to know. You know, you can't deliver a painting and have your client call back 3 months later and say, you know what, my red has vanished from my painting. So that's, I think, a very a big thing to me. And then, well, the last thing I say is that some colors, they dry up very light, and yeah, they are transparent. That's what they say on their website. They have tried to create a very transparent set of colors, and I think they have succeeded in doing that. So if you're looking for that, you know, that's really great. It's just that I don't really see um, the extra value. If you look at the price, I don't see the extra value. So I'm sorry to say that the Holbein Artist Watercolor, they let me down. I would not buy these again. Again, they are very expensive. I don't know what they are. I heard that in the United States and in Japan they are much more affordable. Here they are super expensive to import. And I would, if, you know, I am actually deliberating purchasing another set of acrylic gouache by Holbein, because they are, I love them. I really love them. But this, no, sorry, this is not my cup of tea. The only exception to this rule, to my impression, is the Chinese white. I think that this white rocks it. This is a beautiful white to use for highlights in mixed media work in which you use watercolors. Okay, so I hope you will check out my online course and the Art for Earth art bundle, which is really great. There are 75 art resources in there, and they are super super varied. There's a lot in there for everyone, and just check it out. You might find things that you like about it. So thank you very much for watching. There is a lot more in store. I have a lot more paints, and I have been contacted again by paint manufacturers about my trying new paints, and I still have the core mini pans that I wanted to give away, And it's been so busy because I've been working on this new online course in the Art for Earth project. It was a very tight deadline, but now I have time again after this the launch, and you know, there's going to be new videos very quickly. So thank you for watching, and see you in my new video. Bye.